All right. Design tokens crash course in 10 minutes or less. I can see a clock there, so I know that I'm on it. What is a design token? A design token expresses a design decision, and it's written in a common language that is platform agnostic and shareable across different disciplines, tools, and technologies. That idea of the common language talks about how we write those tokens so that they can live in a JSON file and then have them in code to share between our engineering team and anyone else who needs to consume them. And the way that we write those tokens and what it includes or doesn't include is managed by the Design Tokens Community Group. And they host that specification on the WC3 website and platform for the standard. So if you ever hear us talking about the spec or WC3, we're talking about this idea of what is like an official token type or what is the official spec on the token. The spec says that a token is a name, the type, the value, and the description. And it lives in a JSON file in code, and it becomes a source of truth that can be shared between these different tools, technologies, and platforms. And interestingly enough, the idea of a token type is a relatively new addition to what a design token should include. So basically, a design token has everything that we need to communicate our design decisions. You can look at a design token and understand the who, what, where, when, why, and how of all of your design decisions. We can take those tokens and yes, we can apply them directly to components in Figma or any other design tool technically, but we can also sync those design tokens to variables or colors, and then product designers can use those to style whatever it is that they're working on. And then we take those design tokens and we have them in code. We can sync them through different tools like GitHub, GitLab, whatever it is. And engineers can use a tool like Style Dictionary to transform the token into whatever programming language that they need. When we talk about this idea of token structure, or you might have heard it referred to as token architecture, it means the flow of information between the different design decisions that we have specified for each of the teams that might be interacting with our token. Now, you might have seen a really terribly designed version of this infographic that I put on Twitter, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago now, asking people what they named the different tiers of their design decisions. And I was shocked to find out that there's 8 or 9 different versions of what you can call these top 3 or the 3 tiers in a typical structure. So at the top, most people agree that they're going to call these a primitive. Some people call them an option or a global or whatever it is. So for simplicity's sake, I refer to these as primitive or options. And in the middle, they're called semantic, but that word doesn't necessarily apply. So instead of calling it a semantic token, I call them decision tokens. And in the bottom, it's what we apply to a component. And if we write a token specific to that, it's a component specific token. So in a normal 3-tier structure, we have our primitive options, we have decisions that we make that we apply to components. Now, if we look at what a token looks like in code, we have the name, and that acts as the ID for the design decision. The value of whatever we decided. The type that the token is. Now, if I have the same value and the type, for example, was a text or a string token, it would tell the system to apply this as a string of text as opposed to apply the color. So it's pretty important. And the description is optional. You can use the description field to add some notes in there that your engineers can actually see when they consume your tokens. Now, today we're here to talk about token names. So what makes a great token name? Now, most of you are going to tell me it's semantic. However, semantic means it has meaning. And what is meaningful to me might not be meaningful to the new designer we hire in 6 months. It might be not meaningful to my product manager or anyone else on my team who isn't living in the world of pure token madness that I live in day to day. So instead, great names are simple. They're human readable. They're thoughtful. They're collaborative. Now, what do I mean by collaborative? Well, remember I told you that design tokens are supposed to be a shared source of truth between designers, engineers, stakeholders, and everyone else that is sharing your system? What if we have a name for a button that looks like this? mds.sys.sem.cont.lo. That's supposed to be the ID for design decision, but I don't really know what that means. And I live in token land forever. Is my PM going to know? Is a new designer going to know? An engineer might. Now, this is a token that I borrowed from material design. And so if you're a material design guru, you're like, I know exactly what that means. But it's not semantic to me because I haven't built in that world in a long time. So instead, what if we had names that were catered to the different people that are in our teams? So maybe as a systems designer, I know exactly what colors.gray 500 means. But people working in product design or consuming my system, they're not going to know when they should use that colors.500 token. Instead, they go, oh, brand colors, and it's the neutral palette, and it's the default version. Cool, I know what that means. It's contextual, and I understand it. My engineers, however, they need something a bit more specific. What's the component? Where does it live? What is it doing? What property does it mean? Just from looking at the name, which again is the ID of the design decision, I want to know the who, what, where, when, how, and how of everything that is within that token. Great names are also future friendly. Some people say future proof, but at the speed of which things are changing, I don't know if that's a safe way to call it. So a future friendly name means I won't need to change or replace the token. The name is going to remain technically accurate even if the decision changes. So let's talk about this idea of hierarchy, right? So I have this thing called button outlined default background color. Okay, it's the background color for a button. It's outlined, makes sense, and it's the default state. I get that. However, what if my system changes and I'm no longer using an outlined button for that second tier of what I need it to do? Well, this name no longer applies. So instead, I could use something very foolproof and future friendly, like literally tier 2, if I wanted to communicate that. Great names are scalable. I won't need to modify the token names as my system evolves over time. Now, remember that awesome name I had chosen, button tier 2 default background color. Well, we all know that your buttons are not just neutral colored unless you're working in a plugin like Token Studio for now. We usually have a neutral button, you have a brand one or an info one, you have success, you have danger, and we all know that this is not the only kind of button, but I don't need to talk about that any further because I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. So instead, let's give a space for this idea of the intention or the appearance. So now I know that this is the button that is in the neutral styling category. It's the second tier of emphasis. It's at the default state and it's for the background color. I literally can tell from looking at the name what this token is supposed to represent. It's human readable, it's contextual, scalable, future friendly, and all the things that make a good name. So now, how do I craft a good name? There is no one right way. If it works for you, your project, and your team, it's a great approach. However, Romina and I are both going to share how we've been doing it. Romina's way is interactive and has a really awesome automation tool based on a table, and mine is in FigJam. And so I'm going to pass it off to Romina so Romina can wow you with hers, and then she's going to pass it back.